Friends, it's a great pleasure to address our conference in the exciting climate after the referendum. Thank you for such a warm welcome. September the 19th was a very hard day. As I toured the media studios of Edinburgh, my brave face was on, but my heart was breaking. The Yes campaign had worked so hard, with imagination, with inspiration, with passion, with hope, to give us the chance to make Scotland the country that we know Scotland can be. And we got so close, much closer, than any of the Labour, Tory and Liberal better together allies thought that we would get. But let me tell you, standing here before you today, the view is spectacular. I see a party that's dusted itself down. I see a party that has attracted new talent and welcomed it with open arms. I see a country that is energised, and I see a future that is bright, a future that is ours to win. We heard yesterday from our leader, Scotland's First Minister, my boss, as I like to call her, Nicola Sturgeon. I cannot tell you what a privilege it is to serve as the Deputy First Minister in her SNP government. And listening to the First Minister yesterday, it is crystal clear. Our party, our country, and our future is in the very best of hands. When our First Minister took office in November, three of our precious colleagues left the Cabinet: Alex Salmond, Kenny McCaskill and Michael Russell. Each one of them played a critical part in our government. Each one of them delivered a record to be proud of. Each one of them gave everything they could to serve the people of Scotland, and each one of them deserves the warmest thanks of this SNP Conference. Much has been said in recent weeks about opinion polls, and there's no doubt they make for pleasant reading, unless of course you're a member of the Labour Party. But there is a poll that particularly caught my eye last week. We all know that Nicola Sturgeon is rightly trusted by the people of Scotland. More people, vastly more people, trust her than any other political leader in Scotland. But that's not what this poll said. It asked people across the United Kingdom, not just in Scotland, for their view of the party leaders. And our First Minister's ratings were better than all the other party leaders, not just here in Scotland, but in the whole of these islands. In fact, of all the party leaders, Miliband, Cameron, Clegg, she was the only leader to get a positive rating. Now that's an astonishing. It's an astonishing poll, and it's a mark of the class act that we have in our First Minister. To those of us here in the SNP, it's not a surprise. Approval ratings for our First Minister are positive because she outclasses all of her political rivals. And we'll see that gulf. And we'll see that gulf in class this week, live on Thursday night, when our First Minister goes head to head with Cameron, Clegg and Miliband. They will have to face our First Minister in political debate for the first time. Now, I've got a theory about why David Cameron has been so reluctant to debate. He's dodged, he's weaved, he's begged, he's bullied. He's used every excuse to avoid this debate. I almost feel sorry for him, but I think I have the reason. I think he's been watching a DVD of the First Minister's debate with Alistair Help Me Rona Carmichael. The trust people have in our First Minister and in your SNP government is not simply built on debating skills. It's built on her values and our values. When the recession hit and Labour slashed the capital budget, we invested in infrastructure projects, in jobs and in schools and in hospitals. When the Tories imposed swingeing welfare cuts, we moved heaven and earth to fund the council tax reduction scheme, reducing the council tax for over 500,000 vulnerable people in Scotland, helped by this SNP government. We established a Scottish Welfare Fund. We put money in place to stop the bedroom tax. And Alec Neil, our Social Justice Secretary, is acting day and daily to mitigate the worst effects of the welfare changes. And now as Westminster plans £30 billion more cuts, we will fight tooth and nail to protect the vulnerable, support Scotland's economy and invest in public services. Time and again, when the big questions have been posed, when the hard judgments have had to be made, we have not been found wanting. Protecting the vulnerable, supporting the economy, promoting the national interest. That's the hallmark of the SNP government. That's why people trust the Scottish National Party. Over the last 8 years, there's been a consistent pressure on the public finances through a continued programme of cuts pursued by the Westminster government. But this austerity programme has failed by any benchmark. Westminster cuts have cost the UK GDP 5%, or £1,500 for every man, woman or child. Net borrowing this year will be more than double what the Chancellor said it would be in 2010. In total, over the 6 years to March 2016, the Chancellor is likely to borrow over £150 billion more than he planned in 2010. So even by Westminster's own yardstick, austerity has failed. But lost growth and higher debt are just the financial costs of Westminster's failure. The human cost has been higher still. Analysis by the Institute of Fiscal Studies found that the coalition tax and benefit changes have hit the poorest households the hardest. The disabled, the poor, the vulnerable have been targeted. That's the reality of Tory cuts in this austerity programme. Tories are not alone. Danny Alexander and the Liberal Democrats have signed off on every pound cut, every budget slashed and every penny squeezed from the poor. And Danny Alexander has the brass neck to lecture us about the public finances. In 2010, Danny Alexander opposed a rise in VAT and opposed austerity. In government, he delivered both. No wonder the Liberals have absolutely no credibility left in this country. The Labour Party have cheered them on. They walked hand in hand with the Tories through the lobbies of the House of Commons to back these cuts. Labour and the Tories joined at the hip. It's becoming a regular occurrence. We got it during the referendum as well, voting together for the Charter for Budget Responsibility. Ed Balls said there was nothing in the Chancellor's budget that he would want to change. Jim Murphy supported the £30 billion of cuts to come. Well, the Tories claim we are all in this together. Well, the Liberals and the Labour Party certainly are in it. They're up to their oxters in Tory cuts. Come this May, they'll sink without trace as the people of Scotland deliver their verdict on the austerity agenda of the Westminster Party. The Chancellor used the budget to boast that he had more financial headroom, as they call it. He tells us the books will soon be back in the black. He could change course. Instead, George Osborne spelled out a plan. Cuts, cuts, cuts and more cuts. £12 billion more cumulative cuts facing Scotland in real terms over the next few years. But there is an alternative. The First Minister has laid out a clear plan that will see us invest to protect our public services, to deliver billions of pounds for schools and hospitals, and to boost jobs and growth. and by the Treasury's own analysis, the deficit would fall in each and every year. Westminster's austerity is economic madness. It has to stop. On the 7th of May, the people of Scotland have a chance to end the madness. We have a chance to stop the cuts. We have a chance to bring sanity back to the public finances of the United Kingdom. Since 2010-11, Scotland has suffered a budget cut of nearly 10% in our budget and closer to 25% in our capital budget. That has been hard to manage, but we've maintained our public services, protected the National Health Service, invested in our capital estate, and at the end of this financial year on Tuesday, I will balance the budget for the 8th consecutive year. That competence is one of the great strengths of your SNP government, but there are many others. Almost every day I travel from my home in Perthshire to Edinburgh, and each time I make that journey, I see that competence emerging in steel and concrete under the stewardship of Keith Brown, our Infrastructure Secretary. Anyone who crosses the Forth Bridge cannot fail to be astonished by the sight of the new Queensferry crossing, the largest public infrastructure project ever undertaken in Scotland, as it rises inch by inch from the Firth of Forth, on time and on budget. In the Borders, and this is especially for my dear friend Christine Graham, in the Borders, the new railway will connect communities to the capital by rail for the first time since 1969, on time and on budget. Here in the great city of Glasgow, we will soon see the single largest NHS project ever delivered, the New South Glasgow Hospital, on time and on budget. Conference with the SNP government, on time and on budget, is the rule, not the exception. It's that record of confidence in government that's allowed us to build up a record of delivering for the people of our country. Shona Robertson, our Health Secretary, has taken the health budget to over £12 billion, with real terms increases in funding. Shona has taken the action required to tackle the winter challenges in our National Health Service. And despite the constant moans of the Labour Party, our hard-working NHS staff are treating more patients to higher standards and within better timescales than any of our predecessors in government. The police and fire reforms have been delivered. Police numbers are over 1,000 higher than under Labour. We have a 40-year low in crime. Re-offending levels are down, and Michael Matheson, our Justice Secretary, is determined to take the steps necessary to keep our communities safe in Scotland. Our economy is recovering, with economic activity lower than the UK and employment higher than the UK. New business startups are growing and Scotland's productivity is on the rise. Our External Affairs Secretary, Fiona Hislop, has developed our international strategy that's seen exports rise by 40% since 2007. And the excellent work of our Rural Affairs Secretary, Richard Lockhead, has created a dynamic food and drink sector that is contributing significant growth to the Scottish economy. We've delivered economic progress for the people of Scotland. When we took office, there were just 15,000 modern apprentices. Now there are 25,000. The council tax has been frozen since 2008. Concessionary travel has been protected. Road equivalent tariff has been introduced in the islands. Prescription charges have been abolished. Free access to higher education has been restored. These are the achievements of a government dedicated to delivering for the people of Scotland. These are the achievements of a party dedicated to protecting our public services. These things don't happen because of Westminster. These things happen despite Westminster. Just imagine what more we could do if we had more of a say in Scotland's future. Just imagine what we could do if we had the powers of independence behind us. For 8 years now, we've based our government on the lasting values of our party and our country. We've earned the trust of the Scottish people, we've built a reputation for competence and a record of delivery, and we have the ambition to change Scotland for the better. Our First Minister has put tackling inequality at the heart of your SNP government. Within walking distance of this hall, there is poverty and inequality that should have no place in a modern, energy-rich, resource-rich Scotland. The existence of that inequality is a scar on our country. It is a moral outrage, and the ambition of our First Minister and this SNP government is to bring the moral obscenity of poverty to an end in this country. We can and we must create a wealthier and a more equal society, and we can do it founded on participation, prosperity and fairness. There's never been a time like this in Scottish politics. There has never been an opportunity like this. In the inimitable words of Glasgow's own Elaine C. Smith, the Westminster parties think Scotland should get to the back of the bus and shut up. But Scotland is still talking. People have never been more engaged, more passionate, more determined to have a say in what happens next. We want to foster the sense of democratic renewal that is bursting forth in Scotland. We want everyone to feel they have a part to play in creating a fairer and a more prosperous country. That frightens the life out of the Westminster establishment. That's what drives the Scottish National Party. We all know that a strong economy is essential to achieving a fair society. But we also believe that the reverse is also true. A fair society supports a strong economy. Fairness does not follow after growth. Fairness delivers growth. We want to build sustainable economic growth, and we intend to do it by tackling inequality. The OECD estimate that rising inequality has reduced economic growth in the UK by nearly 9 percentage points between 1990 and 2010. And a large part of that time, Labour were the government of the United Kingdom in the process. That's why Scotland's economic strategy makes tackling inequality one of the two overarching priorities alongside boosting competitiveness. These mutually reinforcing priorities will help Scotland become a more productive, cohesive and fairer nation. And that practical work has begun. By improving our long-term productivity, we can ensure that the Scottish economy can support higher outcomes, living standards and wealth for the Scottish people. To support Scottish businesses, we will maintain the most competitive business rate scheme in the United Kingdom. We will invest £11 billion in Scotland's infrastructure, despite further cuts to our budget. Our Business Development Bank and our Innovation Forum will help ensure that businesses get the advice and have the financing options they need to be successful. Our Fair Work Secretary, Rosanna Cunningham, will take forward the duties of her appointment to dedicate all her efforts to ensuring that work is fair. We are establishing a Fair Work Convention, supporting a Scottish business pledge to promote payment of the living wage, and following the clear example of our First Minister, acting to deliver gender balance in workplaces in the private, public and third sectors, improving the value of work, of creating partnership in the workplace. That is the key to tackling the scourge of in-work poverty that's been delivered by Westminster.